Welcome to today's lesson. Today we are going to be discussing shadows and creating shadows and values. But more important, we're going to be talking about creating the 5 parts of the shadow. So go ahead and take your sketchbook, turn it landscape so that we can work across the page. And at the top here in the center, write in the 5 parts of the shadow. 5 parts of the shadow. Now, as we start working on this, you're going to need a couple things. You're just going to need one pencil. Now, I'm using a mechanical pencil, which is fine for today, but you'll also need a circular object. Today I'm going to use some tape, and basically I'm going to place this in the center here in a second, and we're going to trace around it. Alright, and then you may need a blending stump, and we'll talk about blending stumps here in a second, but you may need those as well. If you don't currently have one, you could use a rolled piece of paper. Alright, so let's get started. Now, the first thing I want to do is I want to trace inside the circular object, alright, so that we have some semblance of a sphere. Now, once I get this done, I want to go ahead and figure out where my light source is located. Now, when you're creating value, you've got to be really respectful to the light source. You can even see in my video right now, you know, where my hands are. Look at all the shadows that are coming around my hand. Alright, my hand's illuminated a little bit, but then there's cast shadows everywhere. Alright, now if you look really close and squint your eyes, you can see several different values just in the shadows of my hands. And if I move them further out, they get less. If I move them closer to the ground, now I can see lots more value just in the shadow of my hand there. Alright, now we're going to worry today just about one specific light source, and I like to start with the light source in the upper right hand corner. Alright, so I'm going to write light source here so that I know that this is where the light source is coming from, and I can always honor that by having that information right there. Now, the light source is definitely not a part of the 5 parts of the shadow, but I want to go ahead and put a little legend over here so that as I start building this drawing, I have a place where I can label so that I can always come back and reference. Alright, now the first thing we want to do is we identify the light source. So the light source is going to come down like this, very, very fast. It's going to splash onto the surface of the sphere, and then you're going to create basically a highlighted area right there. Alright, and then value is going to basically flood out this direction, alright, because this is going to be lit up, alright, and then it's going to just kind of get darker and darker as it comes around. Now notice I'm not doing any kind of up and down lines or side to side lines. I really want to mimic the surface of the sphere. So as I come around like that. Alright, now reason I put those striations in like that is to kind of give me an idea of where colors or values should be started. Now I'm going to start with this first ring here. I'm going to skip where the X is, and I'm going to start lightly shading in. Alright, in almost a hatching kind of way, but I'm going to stay roughly within that that striation or band. Then I'm going to move back to the next one, each time adding a little bit more pressure. And I'm going to keep going and going. Now, as we get to this third striation, hopefully you're close to the center, but if you're not, keep working until you get to roughly the center band of the sphere. Alright, now let's go back to our legend over here. Number 1 is where the X is. Alright, and I'm going to put 1 here, and this is the highlight. H-I-L-I-G-H-T, so that's the highlight. So if the light comes down, hits here, it's going to flood that area with a highlight. Now the next part is actually what we refer to as a shadow. Alright, so it's kind of starting lightly, and it's going to get darker as it comes around. So if you want to put an L out here, going to a D, alright, so light to dark, that's perfect. Alright, now you're going to see in this striation right here, this is the 4th one for me, could be a 5th one or a 3rd one according to how big you made your striations. You're going to see that this band is going to start getting darker. Alright, now this is what we refer to as the core of the shadow. Alright, because what happens is the light source hits here, Alright, and it starts, it gets a little darker, more dark, and then darkest here as it turns away. So the sphere is actually starting to crest and turn away from the light source. So this is where the darkest part of the shadow will be. Alright, and then you're going to see from there, as the striations go back around the sphere, that it's going to start getting a little bit lighter. Alright, now right now I still, like as I'm doing this, I have a whole lot of squiggle lines and stuff like that, so it's not really fleshed out or smooth. Alright, we'll worry about that in just a second. Alright, now go ahead and put in over here for number 3, core of the shadow. I'm actually going to label it a 3. So core of the shadow. So that is the darkest part. Alright, and if you kind of look at my hand here, you can see that there's a core like right there, and you can see that the tip of my pencil, I'm going to point to it. Alright, there's really a dark section in each of those. Alright, so that's where the light is actually completely turned away. Alright, now the fourth part, alright, and fifth part, we're going to put those in before we start smoothing out, is one, the cast shadow. Alright, so where the light hits here, it's going to cover up all this space. Alright, and it's got to actually have a cast shadow that it's casting onto something else. So we know that we're on a flat surface, so I'll kind of sketch in a horizon line back here. So this sphere is laying on a surface that is flat. So I'm going to call this the cast shadow. Alright, this is number 4 for you. I'll put a little arrow so that you can label that. So that's for 4. Now it's very important as you do the cast shadow to go opposite or go in a different direction that you have your sphere. Alright, the sphere is rounded. Alright, it's continuously turning. Alright, whereas I want the cast shadow to be flat. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and put in one loose value here underneath my sphere. Then I'm going to come back, skip a little bit at the end. See, I'm not going to worry about this much at all. And I'm going to come in with a little darker color, and I'm going to work my way up underneath the sphere. Alright, then I'm going to come back in for a third pass, skipping some of the end here, going underneath. Then I'm going to come back, fourth pass. I really didn't raise my pencil that time, alright, but I know where I'm heading with this, so I went ahead and just kept my pencil going, shortened the stroke up a little bit, and then last but not least, I'm going to get way up underneath the sphere here and try to make it as dark as I possibly can with this one pencil. Alright, so now you see you have a layering system here. Alright, we started with a light color, then we kept going over and over and over each time, kind of pushing up underneath the sphere. Now, Mr. Sturgill, why are we not shading in that little part? Why did you stop there? Alright, so this is actually part 5 of our legend, or 5 parts of the shadow. This is the reflected light. Alright, and I'll put that in number 5 over here too. Reflected light. So what happens is when this light source hits here, alright, this illuminates, then you get your shadow and your quarter shadow and then the cast shadow. Alright, but what happens with all this over here? I mean, that light source is strong here, but it's also casting light all the way around the sphere. So what happens is that light from around the sphere is actually casting back up, alright, and it will illuminate the bottom of this just slightly. Alright, and that's why I left that, so that we get this lighter shade. Now, you could go ahead and lightly fill it in, alright, but you got to do it extremely light, so that way when we do shade this in a second, that we do not have lots of issues, alright, and we don't lose that. Alright, now I naturally, if I do make it too dark, you can come back with your eraser and rub that out a little bit. Alright, when eraser, you don't want to kill it. Alright, you just want to lightly just take the graphite back off the page, and you can use your eraser to shape it as well. Alright, if you need a little bit more value in there, please feel free to come in and do that. Now, the next part of this is to blend this down. Now I would use a blending stump, alright, something that looks like this, or just a rolled piece of paper, and then what you do is you take the blending stump and you work in a circular motion. Alright, because if you go with the striations of the graphite, and when you've already got those down there, and according to the hardness of your graphite, you could actually be making little trenches in your paper. Alright, so if you follow the exact path that you did that, you're just basically smearing what's there. You're not coloring the page or allowing the graphite to move. So walk your blending stump or your tortilla around in a circle. Alright, because you really want to blend and get rid of the striations as best as possible. Alright, this also allows you to let the values move into some of the negative space or some of the missed space that you had gotten. Alright, so working, getting all this nice and graphite moved around. Now, what happens if your graphite gets really gets really dirty? All right, you could take one of these pieces of sandpaper. All right, and I know it's got a weird sound to it. It probably sounds horrible on the video right now. But taking this blending stump, working it right over top of the sandpaper. I'm not trying to kill the sandpaper. I just want to clean the tip a little bit, so that when I come in here, all right, I'm back to paper as well as opposed to moving around the graphite that's already on the end. Alright, so let's clean a little bit more. Now you will have, if you do that a couple times, you saw the little sprinkles on there just wiped off. You will do that, so you may not want to do that over top of your drawing. Alright, I'm kind of limited with my scale here, but I'm going to get in there and rotate that around. Alright, now what I do want to do, because we're gonna use lots of different techniques over the next several days, go ahead and put this on the bottom corner. Alright, so this is the 5 parts of the shadow, but more importantly, this is one pencil only. Alright, so one pencil, alright, basically using pressure to create this. Alright, now at this point, go ahead and use your eraser, lighten that up. Now I'm a big proponent of lost line as well, so once I had that circle and I got the values and stuff in, I may come in, and this is really, it's just according to the drawing and the mood, I may come in and actually lose that right there, because if that light source is that intense, then it's going to flood that area. So we just gently lose that line like that right there, but then we get a nice stark value all the way around. Alright, well, thank you for watching. Hope this helped, and we'll see you next time. Keep sketching, my friends.